You're listening to the Known Legacy Podcast, brought to you by Known Legacy Ministries. For more information, go to knownlegacy.org. Now here's your hosts, Bill and Travis.
Welcome back. This is what we're calling the Hot Take, and this is basically recorded right after an interview that was released last week with Chad.
Yes.
And it's our opportunity to kind of reflect on what we just heard, some thoughts, some takeaways maybe, and then we always answer questions from you guys and what you submit to info@knownlegacy.org, or maybe you put in the questions or comments on Facebook or YouTube.
Yeah.
Wherever you are engaging in this, is where it is. So if you haven't done it already, we'd love it if you could give a review if you like it. 5 stars. If not, well, yeah, maybe keep your opinion to yourself, right? No,
that sounds good.
You know, talk to friends and neighbors and say, I don't like it. No, I'm just kidding. And for information about what's going on at Known Legacy, go to knownlegacy.org. And Bill, why don't you tell us a little bit about the book that's coming out?
Yeah, book's coming out. Hopefully, it may be out by the time we do this one, but I don't know. We'll see. But if you are interested, check it out at morethanYouBook.com or at knownlegacy.org.
Do you have a stinger for that yet? Because I got one. morethanYou.com.
Remember, like, the more you know, and it was like the star?
Yeah. Oh, I'm well aware of that, yes.
Yeah.
Did you just...
I did.
Fantastic. And we have a retreat coming up in October.
Yes.
And man, when this drops, it's probably going to be like in a week or two, but
Yeah.
there's always room for one more. It's Known Legacy and Long Shot Ministry partnering together.
Yes,
and it's in LaGrange, Texas.
Super excited about that. We love this. This is like one of our favorites this year.
It's absolutely fantastic. It's
love
fall,
it,
it's outdoors, it's guys, it's fire, it's meat, it's everything you would want from a men's retreat.
Yeah, and that like rhymed. It's fire, it's meat, it's everything you want from a men's retreat. Yo. We're not going to be singing. Anyways. So.
Chad and Ryder camp.
Yeah, so if you didn't get a chance, go back, pause this, go check out the other podcast, check it out, because Chad started a camp called Book Camp. And when I mean camp, it's online, and so it's not like a weekly retreat, but I'm a part of Book Camp.
Yes.
And it really helped, honestly, get this book going,
right.
Get it off the ground. And so with all that, Chad shared some really powerful stuff about him leaving a 20-year career from Baker Publishing to start and step out and do this. And it wasn't because he didn't like it. It was because he felt this calling that was deep within him. And a lot of times we push those things down. And
right.
I was excited to hear that he actually allowed that tension to exist.
Right.
And he kind of walked through, they talked about some of those hurdles.
Right. And the thing that struck me was he didn't go it alone with the tension. Like he immediately started developing a community primarily with his wife to talk through it and game plan. Okay, if this is something, first off, do you agree with this? Do you think this would be a good idea?
Yeah.
Second off, how do we get there from here? And it's not going to happen overnight. You use that phrase about a dozen times. It's not going to happen overnight. It's a culmination of a bunch of little steps along the way, but you have to have a destination in mind. And I think that's where he had a stirring, unsettledness that he was able to finally define and launch this book camp. And I think it's fantastic. So one of the things he talks about is the importance of having a community to encourage you on the journey. And I can't tell you, I don't care what it is you're doing in life. And I think for guys, particularly in our 30s and 40s, even getting into our 50s, this is the hard part. Because most of our relationships and most of our community is in one of two places. It is the other dads on the Little League baseball team, where most of our conversations are about how our son's the best or how some other kids shouldn't be pitching. But we don't have deep community there. Or it's business, and we know that is a community by what am I trying to say?
Like association, like
by association, yeah.
8 to 10 hours a day.
But it's not gonna live on. Like at any point, that business could change. You could lose your employment, and most of that community will be gone at that moment. And so we need to begin today to tend to and cultivate a relationship outside of those two spheres. And I've been blessed. My community is the guys at the cigar shop. And having that community where we have nothing in common except we enjoy cigars. And we have forged over many years of hanging out, of playing dominoes together, of just living life together, a relationship and a community that I think will transcend my employment, will transcend my kids and their engagement in after-school activities, and it truly is a brotherhood. So, Kyle, what about for you and community? Where does that look like for you?
Well, sort of the same as you. I mean, and it has transcended unemployment. We've had several people that have lost jobs, gotten jobs, whatever. But that group, I mean, we go on 5-day trips to Hot Springs or wherever, and we do grill outs. I mean, it's a strong group of guys that are faith based and are there for you.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and I found community with you guys, with church. There's some guys there. There's some selected few, but really it is the ones. Even as you're talking about community, the value of community was. I was just reading Point Man.
Great book.
And they use the reference when it comes to your kids, but he's talking about quality and quantity. So I think it's those moments where you're playing dominoes, but it's the 15th time you're playing dominoes, and someone's like, what really ekes me about, and they start going off. There's enough trust that's built. And so I think even with what Chad was talking about, even the value of community with your family, but then also moving out from there of like you're spending time with these people. And so if you're in a place where you're like, I really don't like the people I'm around, it's probably time to find a new community.
I would say it's probably.
Because you need it. You're going to die on the vine.
Yeah.
If you don't do that. And I'm talking about if you're at a church that you're like, I hate, but I've been here long enough. And I'm like, no, you deserve better than that. And when I mean you deserve, I'm not talking about it's all about us. I'm talking about God has more for you than just existing in some false community.
Right.
He wants you to be alive.
And if you're a guy who's longing for community, I promise you there's ultimate dozens of guys around you that are looking for it. It's just needing that one person to step out and kind of create the space. So maybe it's just saying, all right, I'm going to do a monthly barbecue at the place. I'm going to invite some guys over. We're going to play cards, or we're going to do something that's persistent, consistent, and just to start to forge those relationships, because the journey is long. The dream is sounds crazy, and you need some guys in your corner that are going to tell you the truth when you need to hear it, give you words of encouragement when you need those, and more importantly, just know that on the worst day, you got a guy who you can call and they would drop whatever they need to drop and be there for you.
And I think even as you're saying, it makes me think about the idea of like, there's guys like, well, I've tried that and it doesn't work. I'm like, okay, two things. Pursue the heart of Jesus. Get your identity from him. Because a lot of times I think people try to gain their identity through the people that they spend time with.
Correct.
So I think you've got to have something solid in that of, no, this is what I believe.
Right.
This is who I am. And then begin, so you're walking that path. I'm not talking about perfection, like, okay, now I know who I am in Jesus, but you get close. You get in the Word, you get in truth. We talked about this morning, it's the idea, the value of getting in the Word, the value of truth. But then from there, you're doing that while you're like, hey, I'm going to have a barbecue with some guys at my house. But if you're taking that barbecue and going, this is what's going to make me valuable.
Right.
And I've seen that. You guys have probably seen it too. I'm going to do this thing, and if people don't show up, I'm invaluable. If people show up, I'm valuable. Those are both wrong.
Right.
So it's like, pursue this and then go, God, can you bring some people? I need this. But I think it's we try to value ourselves in that, and that's not the community we're talking about. I know that right now, if you were to step away, I mean, you're like an hour away. I know that you don't go and cry in the corner of the night and go, I'm invaluable because I'm far away. You just come back and you're Travis.
Or does he?
Maybe this is a
what
intervention.
happens in the closet stays in the closet, all right?
But it's this, this idea of know who you are in the Father as you're doing this, so that community is authentic.
Right.
It's not forced.
Right.
So
he talked about the importance of community. He also talked about the importance of having a plan. And I think that's one of the things that can become daunting if God's putting a bold calling on your life to do something.
Yeah.
And we love the, Peter stepping out of the boat and walking on water. And so we're like, oh, just tomorrow I'm going to make it all happen. It's not that way. You got to come up with a game plan. And the reason why Peter was able to step out of the boat is because he'd seen Jesus day in and day out do the miraculous. And so when he said, hey, if you want me to walk on water, just say it and I'll do it. Yeah. That was a result of an intimate relationship he had with Jesus over months of journeying with him,
go for it.
And so I was just going to say, so if you feel like God's calling you to something bold and something courageous, and I think, one of the things that I would put that through the lens is, if it's bold and courageous just to serve you, it's not from God.
Yeah.
It's got to be something that's serving others, because that's God's heart. That we would be men that would care for and serve and invest in others. And so find something that's going to be a blessing to others and really help others come alive. And that's when you really start to come alive.
Well, even in that story, I love that story of Peter and Jesus, but I love that there was this tension. Like, Jesus is however many yards away from him, like 20, 30 feet away. And there's this, I wonder if the pause was there, because Jesus wasn't like, hey, come on out, it's great. He was like, I'm over here in the water. And then only Peter stood up and said, hey, can I come out there? And he's like, sure.
Yeah.
And so we want this red carpet rolled out.
Right.
And just like Chad said, it's this calling that just ekes at you.
Yes.
And you're like, but it's not going to be written. I remember when we were moving from New York to Midland, and I was like, I wanted God to be like, I need you to, in the sky, I want it written down as to everything. And I'm like, and it's like,
that's
it's
not
never,
how God works.
There's never been a written down. It's never been a $50,000 check in my mail going, go and pursue your dreams. Never. If someone wants to,
info@knownlegacy.org would be fantastic.
But it made me think about this, like the journey, when you were a kid and you'd play like, Monopoly.
Right.
Cross the board, just don't hit the whole jail sign. And we think that's life. And really, it's more chutes and ladders. Like, you're almost at the end, and all of a sudden, there's that giant slide that goes down. Or it was called Snakes and Ladders. And back in my day, it was Snakes and Ladders.
Snakes and Ladders.
Snakes and Ladders, man. And so, remember that? Snakes and Ladders.
Yeah.
But the idea of that's more life is snakes and ladders or chutes and ladders. It's not Monopoly. It's not linear. So have your plan. Make sure your spouse is on board and journey that way. But know that it's not something that you're going to be like, and here's the carpet rolled out for you.
Right.
But even like Chad mentioned, taking the step, his grandmother passed away, which is a sad thing. But then also she left them a little bit of something to move it along, which you're like, okay, if they didn't have a plan, they'd have been like,
do vacation.
Do we buy jet skis?
Car.
Yeah, exactly. What do we do with this?
Right.
But we had a plan, and his plan was bigger than him.
Right.
And
I think that leads us to the last part, which is this idea of just being persistent.
Yeah.
And taking one step at a time. And it's something we've talked about 100 times on here, and I'm going to talk about 100 more times because I think it's so profound, is thy word is a lamp unto my feet, right? And a light unto my path. And again, I look at it, and I want the 3-mile flashlight laser that's going to show the end of the road. And back in that time when this was written, it was literally a little flame at the end of a lamp that would give you enough light for the next step.
Yeah.
And I think we part of this process of learning what it is to be bold and follow Jesus is having the courage to take the next step and trusting God that he will give the light to what comes next.
Yeah.
But he's not going to show you the end of the journey. He's not going to show you he's not going to necessarily show you how you're going to get to the destination. He's just going to give you enough for the next step, and be faithful in that next step. Persistence, persistence, persistence.
And I almost feel like if it's the other way around, I'm not saying God doesn't work that way, but I'm not finding it a lot where it's like, and the whole plan was worked out, and we walked it down, and then boom, at the end, and then I passed away.
Right.
Because
who gets credit then?
Exactly.
I get credit.
Exactly.
And God doesn't want me to get credit. He wants the credit because he's the one that's doing it.
It is. It's all him. And I just, okay, guys, don't give up. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Sinead O'Connor reference. Well done.
Did she sing Don't Give Up?
Don't give up. Yes.
That's
remember. Like her number one song.
No.
Yes. I don't think so.
Her number one song is...
Are we really doing this about Sinead O'Connor?
I don't know why we're doing
the Prince song she covered.
Yes.
Nothing Compares to You.
Nothing compares.
Then maybe it's Kate Bush.
To you.
Yeah, I think it's Kate Bush.
Kate Bush. And don't. Oh, I'm sorry. I take it back. Don't. info@knownlegacy.org. It's Travis. You can be mad that I was unaware.
This is a place of grace.
Of the 1980s reference of a song
it's
that
okay.
just popped in my head.
But don't give up. Don't give up. And I think that's the biggest thing is don't give up. Don't just put it to the side because it's hard. In fact, if it's hard, it's a validating factor that it's probably where God is leading you because he's making you move beyond your own strength.
Right.
To go and do something great.
And like I said, we just saw it. Community that will hold you accountable and tell you when you're wrong. That's a good thing.
Exactly.
Hey, that's our hot take. If you haven't had a chance, go back and watch the entire interview with Chad. Fantastic.
It's worth it.
If you feel like maybe God's given you some words to share in a book form, I can't highly recommend it enough. Go to bookcamp.us. Get invested into him. Read through some of his blog posts. The guy is genuine. He wants to help people succeed. And maybe that's something that can help you get over that first hurdle of just starting to write on a regular basis. And one of the things with Hot Takes that we want is you to give us some questions, and then we will, at the end of our Hot Take, answer one or two of those questions.
Yeah.
And so the question that's been submitted today is, I know it just happens to have everything to do with book camp. Who is an influential artist or author that, for you? Who's an author or maybe a director or maybe a screenplay writer, someone like
creative
that's been important and influential to you?
Kyle, you want to go first on this one?
Sure, I'll go first. It's actually whoever created Snakes and Ladders. So
Hasbro.
Goober.
No, I'm going to go with Tolkien.
Oh, okay.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's living way beyond him at this point. So,
and I'll be honest with you, I started watching the whole Amazon Prime has the.
How is that?
I think it's fantastic. Visually, it is.
It's so great to watch again.
Stunning. Yes.
I mean,
is Peter Jackson doing anything with that or no? The creator of the Lord of the Rings.
I know who you're talking about.
That's all I know.
I have no idea.
Okay,
but it's visually stunning. I think there's a lot of good characters that are going to be coming back to life. People are giving it a hard time because of bad writing. I'm not getting it. I think it's a really good. It's a story that's just starting to unfold. You have no idea where the writing's going, so give it some time. I think it's fantastic. I'd say invest. I'd say invest. So for me, it's a guy that actually got me into reading. So you may shock you unless you got an email or a text message from me. I'm dyslexic. I can't spell for nothing.
I still love you.
Thank you very much. Again, community that loves you. And I always wanted to read, but I never got into reading a whole book. And one of the first books I ever read was by a guy named Stephen R. Lawhead. All right, an obscure author. He's a Christian fantasy type guy.
Okay.
And I remember I worked in a Christian bookstore. They were there. There was a 3-book series, and I'm like, I'm going to read this. And it was absolutely just, I read them all hardcover.
That's awesome.
It was the pride of like, oh man, I made it through a book. It's a good, compelling story.
Yeah.
I ended up, there was 5 or 6 in the whole series, and then he wrote another one about Merlin and Arthur and King Arthur's court. Fantastic. I guarantee you can't find him in a bookstore today. But Stephen R. Lawhead, man, if you're listening, thank you for being a guy who inspired me to read more than I ever thought I would.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think for me, 2 guys. Mark Batterson wrote. He wrote a bunch of books, but in a pit with a lion on a snowy day.
Yeah.
That one caught me. And then there's a prayer circle book that he did.
Whisper by him is the one that.
I just finished that one.
Great book, man.
Great book. And then John Maxwell. John Maxwell,
such a stud.
So here's my thing though. So I read his books, but then I also for a long time did audiobooks because when I had a contracting business, I was, doing all this stuff and I could listen, and you'd have that deep voice,
Yes.
And so Maxwell definitely impacted me. Like in fact, the time I met him, I was like, oh my gosh, it's the same voice on the books. You know what I'm saying? So, but just great stuff. And so those 2 have impacted me when it comes to leadership and pursuing the heart of Jesus.
Love it.
In a powerful way.
Love it. Thank you guys so much. As always, Long Shot Ministry, we got a retreat coming up. Man, would love to see some of you guys there, meet you, and hear your stories. Bill's book's going to be dropping real soon. Check out bookcamp.us if you have any questions about writing and pursuing of dreams. I know Chad would love to hear from you guys.
Yes.
And as always, share if you like it. Give a review. We'd love that. I know the algorithms enjoy that as well. And thank you so much for being just a listener.
Thank you.
And for participating in this. And as always, if you have a question that you want us to answer during the Hot Take, submit it to info@knownlegacy.org, and we would love to answer your questions.
We'd love it. We'd love it. You guys have a great day. God bless you. Have a great week.
God bless.
Thanks for listening to the Known Legacy Podcast. We'd love to hear from you. So email us your questions or comments to info@knownlegacy.org.